Well, hi everyone. I'm John Rethlin with a retro review of WCW New Blood Rising 2000. This is peak Vince Russo, aka one of the biggest cancers ever in wrestling. I have no problem saying that because he nuked a couple companies. He was an uncreative jackass who clearly did not care about booking a wrestling show. He just wanted to make it Jerry Springer and every bit of car crash TV in the 90s, and it got horrible. Even the Attitude Era has not held up all that well, though the crowd reactions were insane. And speaking of crowd reactions, this Canadian crowd, at least mostly Canadian, I think there were some Washington State and Oregon fans, as commentary pointed out, actually were pretty electric for some of this. And there were some good moments on this show, but it was marred by a whole bunch of bullshit, with run-ins and false finishes and bad finishes and uncreative finishes and just messy shit because Vince Russo didn't fucking care about pro wrestling and still doesn't. And that's good because pro wrestling should have never cared about him and never employed him. Unfortunately, we wouldn't have all this stuff to rant about, but so many careers wouldn't have been fucking ruined. So let's talk about that crowd. Drunk Canadian fans and Washington State fans and Oregon fans, a mixture of everybody, were yelling about who they thought would win the respective matches, especially the triple threat match between Goldberg, Nash, and Scott Steiner. So every match was apparently contested under no DQ rules. After reinforcing the DQ rules in the past Nitro and Thunder episodes, they decided, no, fuck it, we're just going to make it all crazy. And by God, did it get ridiculous. The best match was actually the first match. 3 count with Tank Abbott versus the Young Dragons. Ladder match for a gold record and a recording contract. So you're thinking one team will get one and then one team will get the other. Well, it was a car wreck. It was fun. It wasn't boring. I feel bad for anybody that, got hurt during this because some of these bumps were absolutely insane. And this rivalry wasn't necessarily great. I hope they got a fucking bonus for this. I really do hope they got a bonus because some of the bumps they were taking were just fucking just sick. And not sick even in a good way. Like, ew, they shouldn't have fucking done that. Jamie gets the record, but then he gets knocked down and Tank grabs the record. So I guess 3 count wins the record. And then Evan gets the contract and 3 count wins. Cool, okay, whatever. I guess we're just going to move on from that. The action in this actually wasn't all that bad, but it was a car crash match. The match that they were all involved in at Starrcade 2000, well, when it was 3 teams, it was 3 count, and Evan and Jamie Noble and the Young Dragons was actually a whole lot better than this. But this was fine, and it was the best match on the card. Filthy Animals are talking to Ernest Miller and say they want to be involved in the tag title match as referees, and they say they will give the tag titles back if this happens, and guarantee that Great Muta will lose to Ernest Miller coming up. And we get that match. We get Great Muta, NWA and IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Okay, I mean, not at this time, but, he's held numerous championships, including those, and a legend, and absolutely great in professional wrestling. In the States, the few, stints that he had here, especially in 89, early 90 WCW, and, I think 92, he was at Starrcade. Him and Masahiro Chono had a match. And, he's facing Ernest Miller, who I tried to soften up on, despite the fact I think Ernest Miller is one of the most useless people to ever be involved in wrestling. But the fact that Ernest Miller won this match. Ernest Miller beat the Great Muta. So that right there, Muta looked pissed after he lost. He looked really fucking pissed. Tigress was there to do a really bad chair shot. Tigress was also one of the most useless people they involved in wrestling, which, and bless the person, she may have just been thrown out there with absolutely no training and said, hey, just do stuff to make it look good. So really, you're not going to get much out of somebody that is completely untrained. And yeah, Muta looked really pissed after he lost. Or maybe he just looked confused. I mean, I'm not necessarily certain, but Muta should have won here because it did not serve a purpose to have Miller lose, or have Miller win rather. Because what would happen with Muta and Vampiro at the end of the show, or near the end of the show. And then Canyon brings out Judy Bagwell on a forklift because fat shaming. She can't fit on a pole. There isn't a pole big enough or reinforced enough to hold her, so it's Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. Now, I love Canyon, and it's unfortunate how his life ended. It's very, very terrible. It honestly is, and, great innovator in wrestling. And Buff Bagwell, not really all that great, but for the WCW audience, actually did serve a purpose. But it's a woman on a forklift. I mean, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck right there? Like, why in the world would you think this is a goddamn good idea? Why would you think anybody, and I don't care if it's Russo or whoever the fuck it is, why would you think it is a good idea to put a woman on a forklift? Whether Judy Bagwell is a nice person or a mean person backstage, why the fuck would you do this? Because all you're saying to your fans is, we don't fucking care, we don't fucking care about how fat people are perceived on our show, or we don't fucking care how people are perceived. We're gonna make fun of you if you look different. And it was fucking shit. It was fucking shit. There were exposed turnbuckle spots. The action didn't even fucking matter because it was a woman on a goddamn forklift. And it got actually more offensive as it went on. David Arquette, of all people, shows up to a pretty big pop. And I like David Arquette as a person, and he did the right things with his payoffs, and I talked about, that in the past, especially the show, the rant that I went on the Thunder episode where he won the world title. And he did the right things with his payoffs, and clearly respects wrestling, didn't want to do that shit. He just shows up. He was filming a movie. I can't remember if it was Eight-Legged Freaks or whatever. I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think it might have been Eight-Legged Freaks, which was a pretty shit movie, but he tried to at least have fun with it. I know it wasn't Scream 3 because Scream 3 had already come out earlier that year. He shows up and he attacks Buff Bagwell and tries to help Canyon win it, but no, he doesn't help Canyon win. And it's funny that he helped Canyon win that and then Canyon went along with this, considering that David Arquette was involved in that triple cage match where Mike Awesome had thrown Canyon off of the cage onto the stage and everything. And, nobody had tried to stop him with everything, Arquette included, even though he was further up on the upper tier of that cage. But he still helps him, and then Buff hits a double blockbuster, gets the victory he should have just pinned both of them, honestly, and then he frees Judy Bagwell, and this whole storyline is over. It's not even the worst thing that Buff Bagwell is going to be involved in, because, oh dear, too, I have something to rant about a little bit later. And then cut her to Arquette, because why the fuck not? And Lance Storm arrives in a limo. Big pop as he enters from all the fans that saw him arrive before the show began. Really good stuff. And then we have Chronic versus The Perfect Event, Palumbo and Stasiak versus Jindrak and O'Hare versus Misfit in Action members. Was it Lash LaRue and Hugh Morris? I think it was them. I want to make this clear, by the way, that I got nothing against the team of The Perfect Event. Palumbo is a really good tag team wrestler. Him and Stasiak actually has pretty good chemistry. Don't really know why they wanted to do the Plant Stasiak thing in WWE, why they turned him into a goof, because, yeah, maybe it had to do with the whole Meat character and him leaving to go to WCW, but let's be honest, he was used better in WCW than he was in WWE. So I don't blame him if that was the case. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just saying Stasiak actually was, and I'm sure still could be, a good wrestler. He went to do some kind of doctor work, which good on him. He did something really good with his life, and I tip my hat to him, if I had a hat. But him and Palumbo were a good team. Jindrak and O'Hare were a good team. Rest in peace to, Sean O'Hare, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But this match had 4 members of the Filthy Animals. Tigress, great. We just need to see her again, apparently. Ray, Hoovy, and Disco as the inside enforcer, while everybody else are the outside enforcers. Disco was given mic time, and automatically every pay-per-view customer should have been refunded their money, because everybody should have just ganged up on Disco before the goddamn match even started. Just taking him out. Conan was also on commentary, and usually I like Conan. Conan was fucking irritating during this goddamn thing. He's just trying to put over the Filthy Animal stable, which was absolute dog shit. They're right about there with Misfits in Action. That's saying something. And Disco Inferno is the referee. He keeps counting slow. Oh, by the way, it says also if you touch the ref once the match starts, then you'll basically be gone. And it's absolutely overbooked nonsense. He's counting slow and everything, except when he wants, I believe, Jindrak and O'Hare to get the victory, because it's the Filthy Animals will get the shot at the winning team after, or, on the next Nitro. So it's like, oh no, if they can, take the least experienced team and show favoritism, then they can, butter them up, they can beat them later. And that, I think, was the idea. The problem is Disco involved in storytelling, and he was never good at storytelling, or wrestling, or being a decent human being. Fuck Disco Inferno. I'm sorry he was ever born. I'm sorry his mother ever gave birth to him. His mother should have been embarrassed for ever giving birth to a piece of shit like that. So anyway, everybody get in here after a long rest hold spot, and then Vampiro Muda attacked Chronic. But then Chavo attacks Disco, takes the shirt off, the ref shirt off, barely puts it on him. It's like he's just got it on over his neck and everything, and counts, and Chronic gets the victory. And, yeah, and Palumbo gets pinned. And then we get a little more stuff later after we get to a strap match. Shane Douglas with Tori versus Kidman. It's a strap match, and I hate it. I hate it. And here's why I hate it. This feud was stupid, the whole Viagra on a pole thing, and then you had the Tori Wilson appreciation night where they fat shamed her because of her sweet 16th birthday where she was big. How dare a girl be big and then become healthy, I guess. How dare we make fun of people being different as teenagers than they are as adults as far as appearance. But anyway, I digress. They imply that Tori has put on a little bit of weight. Oh no, are they going to do a pregnancy angle? Nope, that's going to come up a little bit later. Tori interferes. We get a kill switch pinning Shane, or variation of a kill switch. And then Tori gets strapped repeatedly. Vito shows up to help Kidman, and then Reno runs in and gets laid out. Then it was bad. It was so fucking bad. I'm rushing through some of this stuff because some of these matches just don't matter. Footage of Jarrett attacking Booker. Clearly, the Southern gentleman was upset that the Black World Champion was driving a white car. To be fair, Jarrett's gimmick kind of makes me think that could have been the case. Now, I'm not saying Jarrett is, but it's kind of weird. Southern Caucasian man brutalizes African-American man in Vancouver, news at 11. Then we get Major Guns versus Miss Hancock. Mud Pit rip off the clothes match. Oh, dear. This was given 6.5 minutes. I mean, including entrances, it was probably like 8 minutes. This was given 6.5 minutes. And a couple of other matches were not even given close to that. There were a couple other matches. There was one other match that was really short, probably because this one ran long. Look, Miss Hancock, really good athlete. The future Stacy Keibler, really good athlete. And I say future Stacy Keibler because that's what she was called in WWE. Major Guns, I necessarily care for her, but whatever. As a character, she was just there. And she had boobs. Major Guns, boobies. And it was atrocious. This was one of the worst matches that has ever been put on pay-per-view. At least between WCW and WWE. This was as bad as the Cat versus Terry Runnels. And Terry Runnels was the best worker out of anybody between these four women. Stacy's a good athlete, but green. Major Gunn shouldn't have wrestled. The Cat never should have wrestled. And I felt bad for Terry. I actually reviewed SummerSlam 2000 if you want to check that shit out. But this was insanely bad. Shockingly bad. Unfortunately, I forgot about the ending exactly. I remember who won, but I forgot what led to the ending because I purged some of WCW out of my mind. Unfortunately, since I've been reviewing the reboot episode all the way to here, I got reminded of why I hate WCW in the fall in 2000, at least until Halloween Havoc 2000 when they get rid of Vince Russo, that cancer to wrestling, if I mentioned that. I have no words for how bad this was. They ripped their clothes off. Okay, whatever. They're two tan, blonde women and people like that. I've never really cared for either one, honestly. I'm not saying that they're ugly. It's just they aren't my cup of tea. But I see why people like Stacy, Major Guns, is a little too fake for me. But again, they both appeal to the crowds. Most men and statistically some women. But they get to the mud pit. And it looks like Miss Hancock's going to get the victory. And she suddenly starts clutching her stomach. She starts clutching her stomach. Major Guns pins her. And David is here to help Miss Hancock. And she's stretchered out. This is going to lead to the fucking Buff Bagwell David Flair DNA match. And I want Vince Russo to be publicly humiliated for putting these storylines in front of us and actually making them happen. I want WCW executives, anybody that thought this was a good idea, to also be publicly humiliated, at least verbally, because fucking hell. Fucking goddamn hell. My God. The announcers try to explain this shit as Miss Hancock is hauled off. Pregnancy angles never work. Russo and Ed Ferrara, remember that whole Terry Runnels thing they did? On the same night where Mick Foley won the world title, and yes, it did put butts in seats, this was something they actually thought was a good idea to repeat. Only make it worse. Sting versus the Demon. Sting repels to the ring. They battle in the entranceway. And one line, he's got the Demon dangling, which I, dealt with the maturity that you would expect from me. Except I totally laughed at, like the immature jackass I am. Death drop for 3. Vampiro Muda attack. And then Chronic comes in to save. And then says, hey, Vampiro Muda, you attacked us earlier. We did this. How about we have a match later for the tag titles? Why not? Everybody's just making matches. Then we get Awesome versus Lance Storm. Canadian Heavyweight Championship match. Let me make this clear. Let me make this abundantly clear. This match was basically just a gimmick. Lance Storm got a huge reaction. I mean, absolutely enormous reaction from the Canadian crowd. It was good shit. Mike Awesome was out there letting them get, the adulation and everything. And it was really good stuff. It was Canadian rules, and he kept making up rules because, honestly, I think half the crowd might have rioted if Lance Storm didn't get the victory. But he announces a special guest referee, Lance does. It's Jacques Rougeau, a.k.a. the former Mountie. And Awesome does slip at one point, but does recover and hits a clothesline. The crowd laughs, but this kind of stuff happens. The rules are, the Canadian rules. Oh, wait, Mike Awesome gets a 3 count. Nope, it's got to be a 5 count. Oh, wait. There's no count out or there's no submission or count outs or DQs. You must win by pinfall. And the 5 count. And also, once the 5 count happens, a wrestler has 10 seconds to get to their feet. If neither wrestler gets to their feet by the count of 10, then the first one to their feet wins. Did you follow that? Good. Because this is basically what happened. They kept doing a whole bunch of shit, to advance or to string along the match and everything. Awesome did everything he could. A belly to belly through the goddamn table. Ouch. That looked like it hurt. Rougeau ends up hitting Awesome when they both try to do the count, him and Slick Johnson, and Storm wins. The match is entertaining, and they get Storm over as a hero in Canada and a, bad guy in the U.S., but more of an angle than a match. But here's Brett. Brett's going to attack both of them. Oh, no, he hugs them because Canadian. And also Brett had that Lloyd's of London insurance policy. Well, he had that contract with WCW that was going to run out soon. But he also would later cash in a Lloyd's of London insurance policy. To be fair, don't blame him for getting that, but of course he was going to hug him. He's Canadian, and he's Bret Hart, and he's my favorite wrestler of all time. So of course I'm going to cheer that. Nash says Goldberg had a motorcycle accident and will not be here. Or will he be here? We'll find out. After, we get Chronic versus the Dark Carnival, Muta and Vampiro, and it was not good. There was a ref bump because of the mist. And then the Harris brothers appear, the Nazi Harris brothers. And yeah, they got Nazi tattoos on them. At least one each. So fuck those guys. I don't fucking care what you believe, but when you get to the point that you are going to have Nazi tattoos or Nazi stuff, that you are showing you're pro-Nazi, you're fucking dead in my eyes. And the Harris brothers should have been fucking banned from wrestling. Any wrestling company. Even Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I believe they were part of that, if I recall correctly. Maybe they weren't. But they should have been banned from anything. From any southern, northern, or whatever regional territory there was. Nazi tattoos. Also, Moonsault pins Clark. So we get new champions, the Dark Carnival, that they lose, I believe, the next night. They lose either the next night or on the following Thunder. And then we get Goldberg versus Scott Steiner versus Kevin Nash. It's a #1 contenders match. And here's what happened. Goldberg shows up later with taped ribs because of the motorcycle accident. The whole idea is going back to the shoot promo or interview that Goldberg did. He's going to do what he wants to do, and he's not going to do what the script says. It was messy. Steiner and Nash really couldn't have a good match at this point, at least on their own. They just couldn't. They were main event talents, but they could not have a good match at this point. Goldberg is set up for the jackknife, and then just shoves him off and leaves. And then gets in Russo's face because that's a shoot, bro. And then a ref bump, and then Medeja attacks Nash. But then we get a jackknife for 3, and we get that. So here is my deal with this, because our next match is Booker versus Jarrett. Jarrett focuses on the typical overbooked nonsense, and Booker T thankfully wins. And Jeff Jarrett is never made WCW World Champion again. At least I don't believe so. I don't think that he won it again. Now, I know Nash won it soon after this, but fucking hell, this was a rotten pay-per-view. I have no energy left to talk about this fucking bullshit. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. Fucking hell, I'm tired. I'll see you soon.